Alright, we're going to do some review here, and then we're going to really do a lot of review here because we're going to get into imaginary and complex numbers. And you've seen the imaginary stuff before, and I feel like you've seen the complex before. If you haven't, you're about to, but it's really not anything that's difficult. And so, first of all, let's do some review of things that we just did. When you're simplifying a radical, if it's a square root of a positive number, then you know what to do with that. You're just going to simplify that. If you break 54 down into its prime factors, then that's going to give me 2 times 3 squared times 3 because I'm looking for groups of 2. So I can take out a group of 3, and that leaves me with 3 times the square root of 2 times 3, which is 6. When I break down the square root of 84, if I take that down to prime factors in groups of 2, then that gives me 2 squared times 3 times 7, and I can take out one group of 2's, and that leaves me with 3 times 7 on the inside, so that's 2 times the square root of 21. Basic stuff that we've been doing, nothing complicated. If it's a fraction, you can simplify that fraction first, and then factor it out. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little secret that you probably already know. You can put this in your calculator, but if it's a fraction, you have to put it in separately, and you're going to get the square root of 28 over the square root of 36 in your calculator as a fraction, and when you press enter, it's going to do its magic trick, and you're going to get the square root of 7 over 3, and that calculator is going to go ahead and simplify it for you. Same thing with 56 over 144. You're going to take the square root of 56 divided by the square root of 144, plug that in your calculator, and it's going to spit out the answer as the square root of 14 over 6. So now let's talk about the imaginary stuff. That imaginary unit I is defined as this. The square root of negative 1 is equal to I. And the reason for that is, well, there's some technical stuff that I probably wouldn't even be able to explain, but when you take the square root of a negative number, there's not an answer. You can't find something to multiply by itself that's going to give you a negative answer. Because if you multiply anything by itself, whether it's a positive number or a negative number, you're going to get a positive result. So you can't take the square root of a negative number. So that's where that imaginary part comes in, and it allows us to simplify these things by getting that negative out of the radical. So here's how we can use it. If I've got the square root of negative 16, I can, really what I'm doing is I'm changing that to the square root of negative 1 times 16, which I can break apart even further and make it 2 radicals, the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 16. I need to scoot up, sorry. And the square root of negative 1 is I, and the square root of 16 is 4. And to put it in standard form for imaginary numbers, you put, it's kind of like having a coefficient on a variable. The I is not a variable, but we're kind of treating it that way because you want the number out front, the I behind the number. So I'm going to show you that one more time. You've seen it, you've done it. Your calculator won't do it, so you're going to have to do some of this by hand. So that's the square root of negative 1 times 81. That gives me negative 81. If I take that apart, the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 81, I can take the square root of negative 1, it is I, and the square root of 81 is 9. And so my answer is 9I. That's where the imaginary stuff comes from. So you do these 3, and then we'll check, okay? Well, actually, never mind. I got the practice over there for you to do. We'll do this together. The easiest thing to do, honestly, is if you know there's a square root of a negative number, just go ahead and pull the I out, and then look at the square root of 5. So this is what I have. And can you simplify the square root of 5? Nope. So that's your answer. If there's a negative, pull it out. So that's going to give me negative I times the square root of 7. And then look at that radical and see if you can simplify the square root of 7. If you can, do it. If you can't, you're finished. In this case, you're finished. Now look at the next one. I have the square root of negative 99. So I'm going to pull out the I because of the negative, and I have the square root of 99. Simplify the square root of 99. I'm okay with, at this point, you using your calculator. If you plug the square root of 99 into your calculator, you're going to get 3 times the square root of 11, but you got to put that I in there, and you're going to sandwich the I in between the number on the outside and the radical. So it's 3I times the square root of 11. On number 6, I've got the square root of negative 45 over 81. Sorry, I was looking at something. I was looking ahead. So if I take the square root of negative 45 over 81, if it's the square root of a negative number, go ahead and pull the I out. And if it's a fraction, go ahead and separate it, because I really want you on this part, just because it's not too difficult, to let's just plug this in your calculator, the square root of 45 over the square root of 81, and let the calculator do a little bit of the work for you. So let me show you what I'm talking about in case you're confused on that. If I have this, I'm going to pull out the I for the negative, and then I'm going to hit my fraction button. I'm going to do the square root of 45 over the square root of 81. Y'all know the square root of 81 is 9. I don't even know why I did that. But it'll go ahead, the calculator will go ahead and simplify it for you, and it's the square root of 5 over 3. So my answer here is I times the square root of 5 over 3. Don't let the calculator be a crutch and do things for you that you can do for yourself. You know the square root of 36 is 6. And so if I've got a negative out front, it stays there. I pull out the I for the negative under the radical, and the square root of 36 is 6. And that's your answer. That's it. On the next one, I'm going to go ahead, I just go ahead and do this. And then I look at it again and see what I need to do. I can take the square root of 144, but right off the top of my head, I don't know the square root of 56. So if you're not sure and you want to just go ahead and do the whole thing, if I've got the square root of 56 on top divided by the square root of 144, yes, I know that it's 12, but I'm going to let the calculator go ahead and give me the answer. It's the square root of 14 over 6. It takes the square root of both of these, and then it simplifies anything that you can. So it's I times the square root of 14 over 6. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to pause it on my end. You're going to pause it on your end. You're going to do these problems 9 through 15, and then you're going to come back and check them. Don't cheat. Don't be a cheater. Just do them and make sure you can understand them, because if you're cheating, you're not hurting anybody but you. Okay, so check my answers and just pay attention to the format, the way that I wrote them. Check your answers, make sure your answers are right, but also look at how the answer needs to be written. The imaginary part, again, is going to be sandwiched in between the number on the outside and the radical, if there's still a radical in there in the answer. Otherwise, the imaginary unit is going to be behind the number. So check these answers. You probably have them right. If you didn't, go back and look and see maybe what you messed up. But use your calculator. Take the imaginary part out and then put like the square root of 50 in your calculator. The square root of 48. The square root of 84. The square root of 18 over the square root of 25. Put it in your calculator, let it give you an answer. That's it.